Hey, it's Chris. 3 games, 3 indie designers, 3 completely different mechanical approaches. Regency, take that card driven. Wana, abstract with marbles. Gempire, engine building with gems taken to the extreme, with set collection as well. Let's go. And full disclaimer, right? These games were sent to me. I love covering these games on this channel, right? I love covering games that normally don't show up a whole lot of other places. That's why we're talking about all 3 of these today. Because you need to know about the ones that aren't getting the hype, the ones that aren't getting the hotness, the under the radar sort of dark horses. That's what all 3 of these are. And that's why we're talking about them. That's what you get. You ready? Let's go. First up, Wana. All you need to know of this game is all the rules fit on the back. I have his other 2 previous abstract games, Sayu and Iro. This is by far my favorite. It's actually the least analysis paralysis, actually the shortest of all of them too. It's because all you're doing is moving marbles along their track as far as you want. All you have to do is trap somebody else's marble on the beginning of their turn. Doesn't matter if your marble is trapped, doesn't matter how their marble is trapped, just that it is trapped. So all you're gonna be doing is moving these along as far as you want in as quick of a manner or as long of a manner as you so choose. But the tricky part about this is that you can actually wrap them around the board if you so choose. So green all of a sudden can go over here. All you have to do though is get 1 so that it can't move any further. And so that's what's going to be the big trick here. That's it. It gives you the talk version of, oh my gosh, that just happened. Whoops. Completely walked into that. And that may not be your ilk in abstracts, but it's also one where then you just reset it and go, because it'll take you about 3 minutes to play the game in a nutshell. And it's kind of fun too while you're doing it. And the looping around is kind of great. The only downside is I just feel like this middle gets really crowded really quickly, and it becomes hard to kind of figure out where you want to go. And skill level definitely matters in this one, very much so. And it can easily go one way or the other depending on the differences between the players in the first place. But overall, an absolutely fantastic abstract game if you're looking for something new. Cannot endorse it enough. Second game up here that we're talking about is Regency. Now, this is a combination of sort of a weird set collection and Take That. And if you know me, I love Take That. Yeah, you're striking all my fancies. Now, what you have is you have these action cards that are going to be present in your hand, and you're going to be playing them on a turn-by-turn basis, trying to acquire these citizens. And these citizens are going to go next to your little leader card here. And you can see the leader card actually has 6 colors around the outside. You have to get a citizen to match up with the 6 colors around the outside in order to win. First person to do that wins, right? That's easy because you can see all the citizens have the colors at the top and the bottom of their card reflecting where they go. And all of the cards in your hand also have the same colors in the upper left-hand corner telling you what ones they're associated with. But here's the catch. You can't use those cards in their hand for their power at the bottom, the action that they're actually specifically taking, unless you already have the citizen to match it in the first place, or your asymmetric starter is that one in particular as well, giving you an exemption. All of the asymmetric starters actually have their own power that you just flip over and activate to be able to use as a one-time bonus here. In this case, for the pirate, I get to just swap a citizen in mine with theirs. So why would I want to do that? Well, maybe I have 2 in the red and none in the yellow, and I want to swap and get 1 in each. Again, victory conditions being met. And then there are 25 different types of cards here that you're going to be utilizing to take that. You have cards that are going to be just getting you influence in the bottom left-hand corner. So that's the total amount that you have on a turn-by-turn basis, a la the deck-building currency of choice in this game, in order to buy these citizens down here, because you can't buy from the top, you have to buy from the bottom unless otherwise indicated, and these cost 5, 6, and 7. So when one of these is taken, you'll notice there's a little arrow here. You slide everybody around and over, and you refill. And then you just rinse and repeat until somebody gets 6. Heavy Take That. A little bit of meta thrown in there, and just some fancy card play to go along with it, right? Attract a citizen from the populace. Okay, it doesn't matter where it's from in that case. Now I don't have to worry about the influence. Draw 2 cards from the top of the event deck. Awesome. Just 3 more influence. Exchange the location of any 2 citizens within the populace. The one you want's up here. Oh, now it's down here where you can actually buy it this turn. Oh, somebody else has an action like that. You want to react and stop them from doing it? Oh, I can do that. You want to steal their citizens? You want to swap their citizens? You want to trade their citizens in a negotiation? You can do all of that as well. And so it's got a ton of that. And so if you are a group-loving, family-style, meta-esque game, this is your ilk. Now, I will say 25 sounds like an awful lot, but you get through the 25 rather quickly. Now, I mentioned 25 of them, 7 of them are general, meaning you don't actually have to have the citizens of the color to match them. It's just you can play them as long as you can just play. But 3 each of the rest of the colors is Again, sounds like a lot, but when you get through this deck, it can be a little bit not as much as you'd like. So there's a lot of rote and repetition, but that's where the more of the meta style comes in. And so if you're not a meta style faring game group, this one could fall flat. But if you love Take That with a little bit of added, I'm going to build my hand each round, there you go. Because essentially what you're doing is you have the ability to retain any cards in your hand up to 4 each and every turn. And so if you want to customize which ones are going to stay in your hand and which ones are getting discarded, you have the ability to do so that you can get a couple back to mitigate. How you choose to mitigate and how you choose to assimilate these cards into the combinations that are going to allow you to best manipulate this board in the first place, that's more of the building aspect. But that is Regency. So if you're looking at this, I mean, this is an absolutely fantastic game in the lines of something like an Oriflamme, only with a central market rather than a laying out with some direct Take That as opposed to an indirect face down. It's a turn by turn, very tactical board that's going to change dramatically by the time it gets around to you, especially at the higher player counts. So if you like this thing, absolutely give this one a look-see because it does something slightly different in also good ways. Third and last but not least here, let's talk about Gempire, because this one is doing a lot of different things. If you are a math and science person and you like a little bit of alchemy, chemistry, as well as addition to go along with your games, this one is going to be right up your alley. But it's also got the tricky stance. It's doing a little bit of blind bidding, because essentially it's a little bit of I cut, you choose, right? Tons of mechanics going on this one. Beginning of the round, somebody rolls dice. You look at these dice and they have both little science cubes on them as well as hammers. Well, hammers allow you to bid. Science allows you to progress in the science and earn scientific breakthroughs. How you choose to allocate those, how you choose to store them is completely up to you. And so what I mean by that is I could take here 4 or 5 hammers, depending on this one. If I wanted 1 science or 1 hammer, I could choose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hammers, write them all down here on my production, and then I would have 5 of these hammers for next time. Or I can say, maybe you already have the 5 here because at the beginning of the game, all you can hold is 5 until you upgrade your production right here. You have 3 different types of buildings that are going to allow you to upgrade. We'll talk about that in a second. But the second action you can do is actually you can use these resources that you have built up to then bid on buying more cards to establish your kingdom in the first place. And you get to blind bid on this little dry erase board with everybody else not knowing how you're going to allocate things. Now, they know how many production you may have, but they don't know if you're going to go 1, 1, 0 or 3, 1, 1 or just whatever you want. And therein lies the beauty of this, is that it's completely hidden until you reveal it. Now, if you lose, that's kind of the big downside, is there's not really a way to make up for losing it. You just kind of lose only one of the things you bid. There's not any real mitigation or runner-up prize, if you will. So you can have a little bit of runaway leader issue there, but how you choose to bid then determines how you're going to set collect. So as you gather these cards, therein lies the second action that is completely possible beyond the 2 that I've already talked about. You get to upgrade your palace, or you can upgrade your rows, meaning when you're set collecting here, you have potentially 2 different rows that you can have. Now, in the beginning of this game, you're only going to have 1 row. And so what you have is you have to have these cards sitting next to each other, because a lot of them will actually play off of each other. This one, either 2 gold or 4 flags. This one, 7 flags. This one, 3 people or production plus 1 production per gold building to the right. Well, this one's to the left. And also I've chosen purple as indicated here. But if I spin it around here, that means up here, I'm the gold. But maybe I have it over here. And now this one is worth 4 instead of just the 3. But the tricky part is, once I section off a green one here, I cannot put one in. I always have to put it on one of the ends next to one of its other colors. So if I got a green one right here, I couldn't play it. But that's wherein you can upgrade your palace and all of a sudden start a second row. And then you can start choosing and seeing how you want to do things that way. And then you can start to see how this may entail a little bit of mental math, because as you lay these cards down, now, as I lay this one down, this now has 2 gold buildings to the right. It now has more production. Then you got to go back to this thing and dry erase and update it. Oh, did I mention by the fact that every time you hit a new double digit, every time one of these 3 values that you're collecting hits 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Oh, that's where these gems come in. These gems also correspond to other endgame scoring victory conditions, which are right over here on the side, because you need to have a certain number of these in order to get more points. Point Feldian game this is. Not to mention all the science over here that are going to help you mitigate an engine build even better in the first place, because as those science symbols accumulate, you go up on the beakers here. But the tricky part is, it's not just a cumulative score here over here. As you can see, there are some values at the bottom of this card. You use it once and you kind of don't actually lose it, but you can't use it for the rest. So if you wanted, say, the religion here at the first value, because you always take the first one that's available to you at 7, well, you'd have to have an additional 27 here for the salt. So for a total of 34 to get both of these powers. So how you choose to allocate them and how you choose to, allocate these scientific results is up to you completely. But 5 of them in a game, you probably won't have more than 2 or 3 at most, so they become very important. But these over here are going to be where you allocate those gems that I just mentioned for getting the multiples of 10 for each of the 3 base production values that you're going to be trying to incur. Actually makes the requirements of these in the first place easier to obtain. Easier to obtain, easier to win. And like I said, there's 3 of these, right? First person to get 2 of these 3 met wins in the first place. And that's not even including the other last thing I didn't mention, because this little board right here is for your palace upgrades. Now, you can't necessarily get more than 2 rows in your palace, but in your palace, you can upgrade it to a higher level. And if you do the higher level, you're going to get all of these bonuses that may go along with it. So when you upgrade once the first level, you get just 1 per science icon down here. Then you get 1 per gem. Then you get all 3 of these, and then you get all 4 of these, and you get all 5 of these as you upgrade. And so you can get significant benefits along the way if you don't have anything else better to do, including bid or take the dice in the first place. Of all these mechanisms, I'd say this is probably the one that feels the most disconnected to me. It feels like the least valuable. Now, I can't speak to that because it's only on my limited plays, but all the other ones seem to flow very smoothly. Putting these cards together actually makes a lot of sense, but it's a lot of math. I mean, the rulebook even says, hey, go ahead, you may need a calculator at some point. And so if you're looking for something that is a little bit more Feldian and thinky in terms of how you're going to set collect these together and how you're going to also outbid your opponents as some of these bigger ones come up in the first place, and which ones you're going to specialize in and which ones you're going to go for, and how it corresponds to the endgame victory conditions, kind of nice. But it's also a little bit thinkier because it's actually deceptive. And this is a 2023 Ion Game Design Award winner. And that right there tells you how much this game actually deserves your attention in the first place, more than anything I can put in a video in the first place. So that's also another reason you should think about it, because that award, folks, ain't just handed out. A lot of these cards are very clever. A lot of them are very thinky though, and that's the other make it or break it point, because you're having to position them very, very importantly on left, right, center. When do I want to cut off this color of the 2 that I can use on a row? Essentially, when do I want to start a third? Which 2 am I going to capitalize on? How soon am I going to build that second row? Which one of the objectives am I going to go for? How am I going to outbid my opponents? Am I going to go for science? Am I going to go for building first? How do I want to strategize my engine over here in terms of upgrading my engine versus actually just building things in the first place? All of those things at the same time, and it just works. It just works. It's going to be a little bit more mathy, and that's probably the biggest downside. And if you're not up for that, we'll pass on it. But if you are looking for something a little bit different in the engine building side of things, this is an absolutely outstanding game in the first place. And let me be clear for a second here. When I say that a Feldian proportion of combinations can go along with, this is all of the number of endgame scoring conditions that you can have. These are all the science and technology ones that can go in there as well. And you're only choosing a fraction of them each and every game. So it's going to be completely different, as well as that huge, huge freaking stack of deck of buildings. So this game is just never the same. So if you're looking at replayability and depth to go along with it with a lighter rules overhead, this one fits the mark 100%.